I know that the last few weeks have been really tough for you, but I've been doing this for 7 years.
10 years.
7 years.
For 22 years.
10 years.
I've been housebound for the last 2 years.
10 years.
17 years.
Over 20 years now.
It's for the last 5.5 years. And I don't get to go out and hang out with my friends whenever I want to, or see my extended family, or any family whenever I want to, or go to work whenever I want to.
You call it lockdown, we call it life.
I live with Ehlers-Danlos loss, and your quarantine is my life.
I live with spina bifida and hydrocephalus, and your quarantine is my life.
I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, along with other chronic multisystemic conditions as a result, such as gastroparesis, chronic fatigue syndrome, and POTS, and they are all debilitating.
I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and many of its comorbidities. I am an above-knee amputee due to complex regional pain syndrome. I am autistic and have several mental health conditions, including post-traumatic stress disorder.
I live with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome type 3, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and an array of complex connected conditions.
My health conditions are brittle asthma, multiple allergies, anaphylaxis, functional neurological disorder with non-epileptic seizures, functional urinary retention, functional vomiting where I can't keep food or drink down and rely on a tracheostomy feeding tube, cyclic vomiting syndrome. I have hypoglycemia due to my vomiting, and I have post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and depersonalization disorder where I dissociate, and I also have fibromyalgia.
I have severe brittle asthma, gastroparesis, myalgic encephalomyelitis, fibromyalgia, spinal injury, malabsorption, atrial fibrillation, and I also suffer from severe chronic cluster headaches which leave me unable to retain information clearly.
I live with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome type 3, severe rumination disorder. I have a peg feeding tube that goes into my stomach that did have an extension into my intestines, but the tube broke free and came out my stoma. I have an ileostomy stoma because I had to have my entire colon removed, and nowadays the only way that I can be fed is through this line which goes directly into my heart, and I have a 2-litre completely nutritionally complete fluid pass through my heart which is then absorbed into my body, as I also have centrally mediated abdominal pain syndrome. My stomach and intestines had to be sewn together, which caused extensive nerve damage. So anything that passes through is exceptionally painful and makes me vomit. I live with chronic pain. I dislocate my joints constantly throughout the day. I'm a full-time wheelchair user now. I dislocate my shoulders, my knees, my hips, ribs if I sneeze sometimes. And your lockdown is my life.
Or ME, fibromyalgia, depression, generalised anxiety disorder, and your quarantine is my life.
I live with EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and because of this and secondary complications and conditions, I live with a long-term central line, feeding tube, venting tube and catheter, and your quarantine, it's my life.
I live with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Your quarantine is my life.
You call it lockdown, we call it life.
The hospitals are my second home, and frequent stays have become common practice for me. I've spent half of my life in them.
3 years hospital stay.
I'm in and out of hospital, which I find really difficult. Just recently, I was in for 3.5 months, right over Christmas.
Online communities, we manage to support one another.
Love one another, laugh together, cry together.
We want to share some wisdom with you. This is how we cope.
I try to always positively distract myself, whether that be writing, colouring in, drawing, or reading. And I try to talk openly to friends and family, including my boyfriend Tom, who's very supportive. I spend a lot of time in support groups online, which are invaluable. And I do keep up a gratitude journal.
I leave the house to get fresh air and go on a trip to the shop in my electric wheelchair, if I'm lucky.
To protect my mental health, I blog, so I have my own blog. I write, I study, I am a part-time student through the Open University. I have my own care package project where I send out free care packages to people that are struggling throughout the UK with a multitude of different things called Send a Smile care packages. I love putting makeup on, I love playing my Nintendo Switch, love FaceTiming with my friends and those close to me. I love watching movies and YouTube videos, and I absolutely love colouring and puzzles and just a range of different things to keep me busy, like crafts.
You call it lockdown, but we call it life.
I have the most amazing online community of people with chronic illness.
By spending time with my wonderful family, having my amazing husband and son by my side all the time, playing with my dogs and my guinea pig, and interacting with special friends on social media. Having a strong Christian faith, trusting and believing, and being involved in the prayer ministry and the worship group. Making cards and writing poetry. And by staying as positive and strong as possible, thinking of the good things I have in my life, and smiling and laughing as much as I can.
I've dedicated my life to my family, and I'm incredibly passionate about supporting other people living with chronic disease and chronic pain. And I'm constantly, desperately trying to figure out new ways to raise awareness for our community so that we can move more into the centre of society instead of just living on the outside.
And just because I am home all the time does not mean I am home and happy. I am home and sick, suffering.
So now you've had a taste of our lives.
Our lockdown doesn't end when the government says it does.
You call it lockdown, I call it life.
You call it lockdown, I call it life.
You call it lockdown, but we call it life.
You call it lockdown, 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 we call this life.
You call it lockdown, we call it life.
You call it lockdown, we call it life.
Your quarantine, it's my life.
Your quarantine is my life.
We understand that you are frustrated, and this is all new to you. But please, remember us when you go back to your normal lives.
Your lockdown is my life. Okay, so if you've ever seen me perform live, you will have heard me sing this song. It's one of my absolute favourites, but it's one that has had a really big substantial change for me in how I perceive it, because when I started to sing this, the only, if you can only say only, issue that I had was with my hips, And it was only sort of throughout my 20s and into my 30s that everything else started falling apart as well. And for that reason, this song took on a whole new meaning for me. And I think I really began to understand the context in which it was written, perhaps for the first time. And now, like I say, it's so ingrained in my heart and soul. So this is Nina Simone's I Wish I Knew. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all the chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things that I could say. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole round world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all the bars that keep us apart. I wish you could know how it feels to be me. Then you'd see and agree that every man should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things that I should do. And though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. Oh, I'd soar to the sun, then look down at the sea. Then I'd sing, 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Ta-da! I think the lyrics in that song sort of encapsulate how anybody living with a serious chronic disease feels. And because at the end of the day, nobody as a child thinks, oh my goodness, I really hope I grow up to be sick and disabled. You know, that isn't anybody's life plan. Oh,